6 o'clock, so we will go ahead and get started. I'll call the meeting to order and we can start with the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I sent around the minutes from our last meeting. If there are no changes to those, we could entertain a motion to approve the minutes from June 20th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Thank you. I'll pass these around. Okay. And I would open it up at this time to public comment if there's anybody who wanted to offer anything. Okay, great. And we haven't gotten anything to our email address since our last meeting, so nothing to look at from there. So today we will continue our discussion on the Article 10 transition language. Hoping we might be able to get through that today and take a vote on it. Again, to put forward in front of the public before a public forum. So if we can't get through it today, we do have another meeting, but I'm hopeful that after our conversations at the last meeting, we'll be able to get through all, if not, or most, if not all of this article. So Pat, I will maybe just turn it over to you to walk us through it. And
So since we last met, some of these provisions are the same and have no changes. I wrote up the transition timeline that we discussed. I actually have one change as we go along that I'm gonna, talk about when we get to. I already made one change, but so I'll go from the beginning just to review quickly the ones we went through until we get to the meat of the matter. 10.1 discusses that the continuation of existing laws, town bylaws, town meeting votes, rules, regulations, etc. shall continue. If they are inconsistent with the charter will prevail. Next, section 10.2, all agencies and officials continue to perform their duties until they're reappointed or until successors are duly appointed or their duties are transferred. We discussed that. Section 3 is just housekeeping, that records, if things change over, records will move with it. So, for example, the Board of Selectmen records will continue along and be given to whomever needs to use them after that. Section 10.4, we talked about continuation of personnel. Basically, this is not a starting over situation. The people who are employed, either in an office or in service of the municipality, or will keep their offices or positions until, unless there's down the road some reorganization. And the change in government does not affect time of service. They don't start all over in how long their tenure is with the town. Next affects...
Can I make a
Yes.
point? We should boldface this on anything we present to the public, so that there's no confusion in the town hall or employees of how this stands as we transition, just so there is no confusion, especially time of service for people in jobs.
yeah, that's
So
a good point.
however we boldface that and capital letter it, or that should be out there for people to be 100% aware.
Good point.
Section 10.5, all contracts, obligations, etc. will move forward to the new form of government from the old. Unless somehow we provide it otherwise in the charter, which there's not really anything that addresses that. 10.6 is where we start talking about the phasing in. So that's what we're going to pick up on tonight. Time of taking effect. It shall become effective upon its ratification by the voters and in accordance with the following schedule. And that ratification will happen after it goes through the legislature and signed by the governor. We'll talk about, any other information the legislature might need, to understand the town's input into it. Section 10.7, the first special election of town council. When I first talked last time, we talked about the town council being put into place a few months before the June elections in order for the town council to put rules together, get a plan together for a town manager, and prepare. So this is going to talk a little bit about that. Originally we had said January, but because we have preliminary elections and I was counting backwards and was concerned about that, I moved this to the first Tuesday in February. Plus, the whole Christmas, January, Thanksgiving, probably not. If you're going 7 weeks before, you probably don't want something to, it gives you a little more time to work with.
There is one edit. So it says a new 9-member town council.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, no.
It's
okay.
it
Thank
spells
you.
out 7 below. It
But
just
you can
says
leave
9.
a 9 in there, that's
Yep,
fine.
that's great. No, I love these edits. And, we've read
have it
it.
underlined.
We've all read it a million times
Oh, yeah.
and don't see it because this is similar language which is used in other transition language. The 3 candidates receiving the first, second, and third greatest number of votes shall each serve a 3-year term, and we say plus the time elapsed between the first special election and the first regular election. So that's really going to be between February and June. Yes.
Madam Chair, I'd like to amend this following that the first 2 candidates, numbers 1 and 2, get 3-year terms. 3 and 4 get 2-year terms. 5, 6, and 7 get 1-year term. The idea being the top 2 should get the most, and then the next 2 logically would get the next most, and then the bottom 3, instead of having the 1, 2, and 3 with 3-year terms. I think just 1 and 2.
Yeah, and we might have used language. Let me just see. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Well, I'll let you discuss it.
There wasn't 9 in there. I was kind of
I
hoping.
was like, oh, did I count wrong? I'll let you discuss it, and then we'll amend it if that's agreeable.
Okay, so your proposal is to have only 2 candidates
3-year term.
start with a 3-year term, and then
Number 3 and 4 would get 2-year terms, and then the last 3 would get 1-year terms.
2, 2, 3.
Yeah, 2, 2, 3. And
Why as opposed to 3, 2, 2?
Because I think we're becoming top heavy there. I'd rather have the top 2 being the favorite, being the longest serving, and the bottom 3 could be, the least amount of votes, and therefore it will be the least amount of votes, and therefore probably they should be up for re-election sooner. I just think a 2, 2, 3. Looking at other communities, that's how they started off doing it.
Madam
I'm
Chair.
just wondering if, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm
Go ahead,
sorry,
Kath. No, go ahead, please.
we'll come back to
I'm just wondering if the bottom 3, like to turn those over in a year, is that too soon to have 3 people to turn over? So I could live with the 2, 2, 3, 2 maybe, just thinking that 1 year goes fast
Mhm.
for turnover 3 counselors. Of course, they could re-elect, and if
They
they're
could be reelected
and
or
if
not.
they're good,
I mean,
then
you don't
they'll-
know what's
or-
going to happen with that.
Mhm.
We could have 9 new people, right? And but no, the 7 new people. Oh, I know.
And it might be 3 years in a row if they had to run to find out if they happen to be running the year before. They may have run the year before, and then run for town council, and then have to run again the next year. So that is a lot to ask if they were on the bottom, but it's just pointing that out. It's however you want us to do it, we can write that up.
Derek, go ahead.
All I was going to say, Madam Chair, was in the interest of keeping them staggered, that's what I thought we had initially discussed when we were talking about this in the beginning, was to go with 3, 2, 2, and 2 1s instead of 2 2s and 3 1s. But again, I think it's 6 1/2 dozen of the other if you're going to go with 3 2s or 3 1s. In the interest of keeping them staggered, though, it should be at least close to that.
Okay, I see. So you're saying 2 3-year terms, 3
yeah,
with 2-year terms.
The top 2 at
and 2
3
with
years, I
1-year
agree
terms.
with. the middle and the back end, I think, could go either way. I agree with maybe the last 3 being 1 year may be a little much. Maybe 2 would be better at 1 year, but again, I could go either way.
Other thoughts on this?
I would be fine with a 2-3-2. I think 3 at a 1, that's.
I think that's a lot.
It's a lot. I think it's. I don't mind 3 at the 2-year term.
I don't really have that much of an opinion on it, but I would be happy with the 2-3-2. I think that would be fine.
Okay. Do we think it's going to be just confusing or unclear to folks that, you're gonna start with 2 and then you go to 3 and then you go back to 2, people getting with the terms? I don't know. I just don't know if that's, thinking about it, people are it's not gonna maybe make sense right away in their head. I don't know.
Yeah, another charter, the reason they set it up was that to make it so that people understood going in, 2 get 3, then the next 2 get 2, and then the last 3 get 1. And the idea was that this way people could understand simply 3, 2, 1.
Right.
And,
So I'm kind of, that's where I'm kind of thinking too, is that's a little bit simpler, or 3-2-2 is also the same kind of thing. 'Cause I'm a little bit worried about 3 people turning over in a year too, potentially. So I
so 2,
don't
3,
have
2,
a
I could
particularly
easily-
strong opinion on it.
I mean, it's a one-time thing,
Yeah, it's
right?
one-time.
Right,
So
right.
it's
At the end of the day, it's a
yeah,
one-time thing.
exactly.
Is anybody opposed to 2 3-year terms, 3 2-year terms, and 2 1-year terms?
No.
Would have been easy if you had the 9, like you put in there.
Of course, Brian keeps talking about 9, he's gonna confuse everybody, that's
Yeah.
Okay, I think.
So 2-3-2?
Yeah, maybe we can
Okay,
rewrite that up.
great. And plus there'll be that little extra few months, because they'll have the transitional, kind of the provisional town council at the beginning. Ties shall be resolved by the flip of the coin. And, and I was looking at that, some of the charters say, the coin toss shall be in the clerk's office in a public setting, it can go on to say that, but some of them are just simple, and say toss of a coin. They'll figure that out, and obviously it's gonna be public. If anyone has any need to be more specific about the coin toss, should there happen to be an exact tie among them, we can flesh it out, but I think this is probably sufficient. Okay, so this B, I've decided probably needs to be a little more clear. The point of B is that a select board member may run for town council. And for those few months that they're both in office, the charter prohibits holding 2 offices at the same time. So we've made this exception. In fact, I think it's probably a good exception for a transition, because if they're both on the board of selectmen during this time and the town council, there's a natural overlap in planning, which is great. But, so I think this is a good idea, but it occurred to me we may want to add town meeting members, because there will be one last town meeting after this, to create the budget because of the way your town meeting is. On the other hand, we can just say this applies to all elected people in office. So, if a school committee member wanted to run for run for town council, they could continue up until the expiration, in June, because, clearly the Board of Selectmen will end in June, right? If they still have terms, the school committee and library board of trustees will keep going. However, if they have to leave, if you have a number of important people leaving as of February, then there'll be, a gap in having to fill vacancies between February and the other. So I would suggest, even though we wrote it this way, that we might want to amend it to say all incumbent officials. And we'll say subject to conflict of interest provisions. There may be things they can't vote on because they're in both. But we may want to say that any town official can continue until June if they are elected in 2 offices. I think in some ways it actually helps with the transition.
And that's just transition, right?
That's just the transition. The only thing the
Yeah,
town
that's good.
council is doing for the first few months is creating rules of business and coming up with a plan for appointing a town manager. They can't actually appoint the town manager until June, but because there's no budget, there is a budget, but it can't, it will be impossible to do so. So, my suggestion would to say any officials in office, but then leave a provision subject to any state conflict of interest rules, can continue in both terms until June. Does that work for everyone?
June is when the charter
June is when
officially
the
takes
next election, yes, June is when the election for the school committee and Board of Library, and Board of Library Trustees will take place, and that is when the Board of Selectmen will end.
Right. So that's when the charter really takes
That's when
effect.
it really starts. That's when the town council starts doing the work of the town council. Before that, they're just doing prep work. So any input that they have from other boards and committees is a helpful thing, and not necessarily a decision-making issue.
Gotcha. Question on pay. I'm on the school committee. I run for town council.
Yeah.
I'm elected. Do I get both pays?
I think there's actually conflict of interest rules
I'm
that
not sure. I haven't
that
taken
apply
the
to
test.
that.
you can only
We
get
can, we can specifically put,
One, right?
It's
yeah,
already,
you
it's already.
can only get one.
Right, okay.
Um,
Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
And I'll check just to make sure that, we can always make it clear in that.
Yeah.
It will help people who are going through the transition if we make that clear, but they would only get paid for one. Do you pay your school committee members?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm not saying that I necessarily feel one way or the other on this, but we are opening ourselves up if we allow you to run on both, and then just you have to resign from one or the other. Do we open ourselves up to somebody ran for town council, gets elected, serves those 6 months until June, and then resigns from the council rather than resigning from their school committee position, for example?
You do, but you run into that for anybody who's already an official, like a school committee member. You will run into that every single year. And it's just a matter of they're going to have to fill it as a vacancy if that
Right.
happens. It's unlikely that somebody will have gone through like the preliminary filing in the other and then not continue on. Plus, but it could happen. There are a lot of things that could happen, so you just kind of have to weigh the options.
Yeah, I just think there's a little bit of that risk of instability that might be difficult with the first council.
Right.
At a time we don't want to,
Right.
not that we ever want it.
But we can't know how many select board members will actually make it onto the council, and probably what you don't want to have happen is for them to go into this preliminary phase and have no one left to run the town between February and June. But if you're saying that maybe we shouldn't expand it to
That was
the
kind of my
others.
thought, is do we just leave it to the entities that are dissolving beginning of June,
the town meeting
rather
and
than
the,
extending it to things that could
That's-
continue running
okay.
through? That's my thought there.
That's
Because we don't have to
definitely
worry
interesting.
about it with the select board members and the town meeting members, where that entity ceases to exist in June, so they don't have to choose to resign from one or the other. But if you open it up to all the other positions, that's a possibility if they're not running for re-election.
Probably a slim possibility.
I agree. It is definitely like something that's unlikely, but it is something that we should just
They
keep in
have to make
mind.
their choice in February. They can't wait until June to make their choice.
So then that
That's
would
what I'm
only be
saying.
for school committee and library board of trustees then?
Exactly. Because, right,
Yeah, it'd be a very slim chance, but,
because,
okay.
right, because, right, because, 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 because,
Or if we were
The
to keep
chance,
some
albeit,
other,
I
other
mean-
department as elected, you know, if we were to agree to keep, like, say, town clerk as an elected position, then could you have that problem there too? Probably
Yeah,
not.
any elected
Any
position, yeah.
elected-
Probably not.
You're right, like if the town clerk ran,
Right.
that would be a big problem because we really need the town clerk.
Right, right.
That'd be a huge problem.
Although, there are legislative, you know, who handles things if,
Right.
if you lose the town clerk. So, it's definitely, you know, we could keep it to town meeting and the select board because they will be ending and there's no possibility of them continuing in their roles. I guess it also kind of
Fine with that.
reduces, you know, it's a more clean
Yeah,
transition.
I'm fine with that, I think it's a good point.
I like that option.
That is a
Yeah.
good point.
She's the chair.
Are there any concerns with that? I mean, I'm
No, I-
not gonna fight for, you know, if
No, I think it's a good
folks
point.
disagree, but.
And so, yeah, town meeting and select board. And that makes sense because, people will be looking for a role if they know that, you know, town meeting and select board is no longer continuing. That may be where where the people who, have run for school committee or board of library trustees, when they were elected, they knew that they wanted to continue in that role. And, that will continue throughout their term. It provides a good transition too, to have the same members stay with their committees.
And we're not necessarily saying that a school committee member can't run for town council, we're just saying that they can't serve on both. So if they
Right.
want to run on the town council, if they get elected, they have to resign from the school committee
Right.
when they would take office on the town council, right?
Because if they chose not to, then you would go probably to the next person on the,
If it's-
Just
if
that's
it's
in line
clear-
with the rest of
If
the
it's clear
charter.
ahead of time, I think that'll make the
Right.
decision. for
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
Yeah.
okay, great.
I have a follow-up question on that. So we also said that like a town employee could not be on the town council. So if you had a town employee who ran for the first town council, are they done in February?
Yeah.
They'd have to
They would
choose in
have to
February, the
choose,
same
yes.
as
Mhm.
others. Okay.
Yep. That's how we have it written as like the standard
Yep.
for the charter, so I think
Mhm.
it's just that we've gotta figure out this transition period.
Yep, makes sense.
Okay, and C, the clerk calls together, as soon as the special election in February occurs, the clerk calls together the persons elected to the town council to take their oaths of office, choose a president, vice president, and to adopt any temporary rules, governing the meeting. And that's just kind of standard, so you know who's in charge of putting them in the room for the first town council meeting. Okay, the next D talks about what tasks this preliminary town council is going to take. First of all, they should appoint a committee to develop rules and regulations governing the conduct of council meetings and business. Things like, you know, who can speak, what are the rules going to be, what are, you know, that's the first thing. That gives them some time so that when they actually have to do business on June 1st or June, you know, the first Wednesday after June, they have in place what their rules are. 2, they shall establish a process for the selection of the town manager. And they may, you know, they can appoint, you know, on day 1, they can appoint an acting town manager immediately after the first regular election while they actually carry out this process that they have in place. It'll likely be whomever, you know, the select board will probably be involved in that process as well during that time. 3, the town council should appoint 2 or 3 members of the town council to attend Board of Selectmen meetings regularly, you know, until the Board of Selectmen is disbanded, in order to inform the town council on ongoing tasks and timelines. This is to create an institutional history, so you know what everyone's working on. If it happens to be someone who's already a town council, already a select board member, you know, more the better as far as the transition. But this creates a responsibility to assign someone to go to these meetings and find out what's going on. Okay. And the next provision, E, talks about what happens if the charter passes and the select board quit early, which hopefully won't happen because people are committed to the town and want to undergo the transition. But if it does happen that there is not a quorum during this time that the town council is in, the town council can appoint members sufficient to maintain a quorum during this few months. Somebody might not like the outcome of the February election and decide to leave.
Right.
And usually it would, unless the quorum's in jeopardy, the select board would use their usual process for appointing vacancies. But in the event that too many people quit and there's no quorum, then the town council can fill those positions in order to maintain the government during that time. Okay. And let me just tell you, later on, we'll talk about this, there's a provision that allows the Board of Selectmen during their time until June, and then after June, the town council to make decisions on the transition to ease things along. So if something comes up and we say we haven't covered this, well, for the until that June regular election, the Board of Selectmen can decide how to handle it, and after that point, the town council can decide how to handle it. For example, this language is unclear. When do we need to get this report in? Can we give it an extra 6 months or whatever? That gives first the Board of Selectmen and then the town council. So even though that comes later, I'm telling you that up front. So if we don't think of everything, there is somebody assigned to make a decision about what should happen. Section 10.8 just simply says there's no March regular election the year of the June election. And all the terms of all elected officers of the town that would expire that March are extended until the first regular June election following the ratification. So it's an extension for all elected officials to that time. There's not going to be a March election. And then we talk about, so this 10.8 section is talking about the new June election. Okay, so in June, the 5 incumbent members of the school committee shall continue to serve the remainder of their terms, including that term extension period, so between March and June. Their term may be up in March, but they're going to stay until June because that's the next regular election. And at that time, one additional school committee member and any member positions with expiring terms shall be elected at the first regular June election following the ratification of this charter, because we're going to need one extra member in order to make it even. Okay. The next part is, after that June election, that's when the president and the town council begins to serve as a member of the school committee. C talks about the library board of trustees and kind of mirrors that same language, saying they will serve the remainder of their terms plus the extra March to June terms. Anyone with an expiring term shall be elected at the first regular June election following the ratification. So D, no other elected position shall be filled during that June election. So all of the other positions will be converted to appointed positions at that time. They will be carrying out the rest of their terms, and after their terms expire, then that changes, then they will be appointed. That's also really helpful to not have everybody change at once, to allow people to carry out their terms. And those people may be able to be selected for those positions. Okay. 10.9, town clerk. The incumbent serving shall continue to serve said office for the remainder of the town clerk's term, including the term extension pursuant to 10.8a. At such time, the office of town clerk shall become an appointed position, and the incumbent continues in office until a successor is appointed. So they may be the successor, but this allows them to, this allows them to stay in their position after the June election, until the town council can make that appointment. So it gives it a little, it just converts it to an appointed, whoever's in that position to an appointed position, until, there's an appointment made. And that could be the same person, it might not be, but it gives them the authority to stay there.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. In the example of the town clerk, would that be a what year term? How many years term would it be?
Oh, for the appointed?
To be appointed. Would it be 3 years?
Town clerk, it's generally not a term position. It might be. We'll have to check. That's let me look at that. But I believe it's going to be a position that is more of a ongoing, just an appointed
Permanent
position.
hire, yeah.
Like a
I
permanent
like
hire.
that better, to be honest with you.
There may be some, there may be some choices made about, we'll try this for a year, we'll have a probationary period, but it will be like that.
Yeah.
For your contract.
Probably,
it might be. They're not,
probably a permanent hire.
right, they're not usually a contracted position, but, I'm not saying it couldn't be, but, that will be up to that time. Okay. Representative town meeting. So the representative town meeting at the ratification of the charter continues to conduct all legislative business until the full power of the town council shall become operative on the first business day following the first regular June election, at which time the terms in office of all members shall be terminated and the representative town meeting shall cease to exist. As well, the office of the moderator and the finance committee, which are functions of the town meeting, shall cease to exist on that first business day. The town council's powers shall become effective on the first business day after those. So this is the transition of the legislative branch of government. Any questions? Okay. And please stop me if there are, because I'll just keep talking. The Board of Selectmen, and Derek, you would probably know this, but I'm reading Board of Selectmen in all of the provisions, but sometimes people say Select Board. I don't think you've officially changed the title, like when you look at the website, it's Board
We
of
have not
Selectmen.
officially changed
Okay,
it
so-
by vote,
so
no.
just for the purposes of this charter, I'm calling it Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
I saw a Select Board in some, maybe it was in your,
I've been using that
yes.
before.
Colloquially used interchangeably, I think,
Exactly.
as generally, I think the theme has been to shift to select board rather than Board of Selectmen.
But the legal title is
Legal
still
title
Board
is
of-
fine, yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so the Board of Selectmen shall continue to be responsible for the general operation of business, and perform all their powers until the business day following the first regular June election after the adoption of the charter. After the town council is elected, the Board of Selectmen will coordinate and consult with the town council on long-range plans or on plans of the transition of government under the charter. And then we've repeated that 2 or 3 members will attend each Board of Selectmen meeting after the first election of town council. So, and the coordinate and consult with the town council during that time is just limited to long-range plans or plans on transition. They don't have to ask them everything, every license that they grant, etc. But we did put this in here. Obviously, we will have town council members at the select board meeting for those few months, but also we have an affirmative responsibility of the Board of Selectmen just to talk to and coordinate and consult with the town council and not make long-range decisions. So they're not going to put in a master plan 2 weeks before they have to change, or a long-range capital spending plan a few days before the turnover that to bind them. So there's going to be responsibilities both ways to be informed about what's going on. Now in practice, it may work seamlessly or it may not work seamlessly, but this is what we've written in to try to give it a little bit more of an interactive feeling. Okay. Elected board members. Except as otherwise provided herein, meaning the school committee and the library trustees, Incumbents serving as elected members of boards, committees, or commissions, including but not limited to the Board of Assessors, Board of Health, Housing Authority, Planning Board, Recreation Commission. And I put that in there because that's what I saw as elected boards. If I've missed an elected board, I'm sure that the town council or someone else will let me know. But those are the ones I saw that were elected. Shall continue to serve in said office for the remainder of their respective terms. Upon completion of such terms, these offices shall become appointed positions. And the term length for those is going to depend upon the body, and it often depends upon statutory requirements as well. The incumbent shall continue in office until a successor is appointed in accordance with section 33(2)A. Okay.
Question?
Yes.
What about appointed committees? We have 300 plus members of various different appointed committees.
Right. We can, that's kind of wrapped into the general municipal agencies performing their duties until reappointed or successors are duly appointed, etc. So that's covered under 10.2. But the intent is for them to continue, and as you know, for these appointed boards, they may be 2-year terms, 3-year terms. People rarely leave on the day of their 3-year terms. It's often they leave in between. So there may be official terms for these, but it will, as they come up, they will continue to be appointed. They will become appointed. There's no intention to wipe the slate clean and start over with all the appointed boards. They're very much important and very important to the whole transition process. Okay. Let's see. Oops. Let me take out that word rewrite. So 10.13, you can remove that word rewrite because we rewrote it. The review of Section 8.8 recall of elected holders. We just rewrote that. We had talked about, we had written original language that we didn't really like, but you wanted that particular language to be looked at the first charter review. So at the first charter review conducted pursuant to Section 9.6, the Charter Review Committee will include in its report any recommendations with respect to retaining, amending, or removing Section 8.8 recall of elected office holders. Obviously, they will look at everything, but this gives them an instruction to specifically address that issue. Sometimes when there's charter reviews, people don't look at everything and they just look at, one particular section that they want to update. But they'll have to look at it that way. Okay, town council compensation, we already approved that it would be as of the date of close of annual town meeting in 2024. Long range strategic plan, already approved it. We just edited the language that set to say the plan shall be completed within 5 years instead of prepared, just to be more precise. All right, 10.16 is what we discussed, that until the June election, the Board of Selectmen shall have authority to adopt measures which clarify, confirm, or extend any of the transitional provisions in order that such transition may be made in the most expeditious and least contentious manner possible. As, for example, let's just say there's a position that, they want to not wait until something expires and if they want to for example, let's just say the clerk, they decide to hire the clerk, and instead of waiting for their full term to end, they might hire them right before the end of the term or whatever, to do whatever needs to be done to be smooth and expeditious in the transfer. So until June, it will be the Board of Selectmen. After that June election, it will be the town manager, or the acting town manager may request, and the town council shall have authority to adopt measures to clarify, confirm, or extend these provisions.
Nothing on this section. I do want to go back to something before we jump to the next one.
Please do.
Anything on 1016 before I take us backwards? I was thinking about it, and the word completed, could that be misinterpreted to mean that everything laid out in that long-term plan needs to be implemented within the first 5 years? I don't know if we might want to use the term published or something like that.
Okay.
And maybe I'm being too sensitive to that, but I look at the phrase saying that the plan shall be completed, and
That's a good point.
that
Okay.
gives me a little bit of pause.
Let me just look at the charter language. The town manager, 3(2)C. Shall prepare, the town manager shall prepare or update in conjunction with department heads, the town council and residents, and a town-wide long-range plan every 5 years. So, that's probably why we originally said prepared, and then we thought, is that wishy-washy? Shall be, we can either
I don't know,
say
finalized
say
or published
prepare-
or
Yeah, prepared and published, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a little bit more
Okay.
clear.
Okay, great. That works. And sometimes it's really helpful to have what people's reaction to the language is, because, we want to be clear. All right. Section 1017, 30 days after the election at which the charter is adopted, I'm going to say ratified, or the Board of Selectmen shall appoint 7 persons to be a committee to begin a review of the town bylaws. The town clerk shall serve as an advisor to the committee. The town clerk is really the person who holds the bylaws and knows where they are and can find out where they came from and whether they should still be in existence. The committee will complete its report and present it to the town council within 1 year of its appointment. So, probably soon thereafter, after June. Okay.
There's just a comma at the end of that sentence instead of a period. That's just a
Thank you.
typo.
No, that's great.
My God, you got that before Brian?
That's awesome.
I went looking for the rest of the sentence.
I love that.
I did too.
No, that's
How did you catch
awesome.
that
It's
before
usually
Brian?
because something's been edited, it's always the last second edits that stay in. So, 1018, it's disposition of certain laws, and we're asking that the town consult its town council to make sure that, we've seen and covered, usually this section talks about, are there any special acts in the legislature that pertain specifically to Ludlow that we want to call out? Otherwise, everything stays the same. We've already discussed that anything they've approved, everything that you've opted into stays the same. But there were a couple things that might need to be modified a little bit as far as, and they were very simple. But Chapter 600 of the Acts of 1974 creates the Westover Municipal Golf Course Commission. However, the town council shall appoint 4 members to the commission, where I believe before it was the select board, so it gives someone else the appointment power. The Chapter 672 creates the Westover Metropolitan Development Corp., provided that the town council shall appoint 2 members of the commission, and that the economic plan shall be approved by 2/3 votes of town council, where before it was the select board. Just to indicate that those are still in existence, and to deal with the current language. And the 2 special acts that are appealed are, and we're going to have the town council look at these also, would be the act that in 1929 that established the Ludlow Representative Town Meeting, and there's another act that created an elected sewer commission, which you no longer have, and it doesn't look like it was ever officially repealed, even though you've made changes in how that works. So we put that in there. But this section, I would say, is definitely subject to town council's review. And we're also asking, we're going to ask through Mark, town council, we always ask that they review the entire charter and see if there's any, often they might have wording changes, or they may say, we do things this way, this is how it should be. You're going to want that reviewed before it goes, at some point between now, so that you can make changes in your presentation to the select board and before it goes to town meeting. It's really up to the town how they want to stage when and how they review it, but we definitely want the town council involved in that, and to check if there's any laws we've searched. These are the ones that we felt needed to. There are some, there are some that aren't important enough to be listed in that, and everything will stay the same. Just wanted to make a note that where the town council appoints the Westover Commission and the golf course and the Metropolitan Development Corporation, these are in line with earlier we talked about how town council could appoint regional appointees, made the regional appointments. So that's in line with that, and that's why we picked town council to be the appointive authority for that. So if you have any more questions on that, I'm happy to answer them, except that I would say this is still going to be subject to whatever town council has to say to make sure that we haven't left anything out. So, so that's it in a nutshell. We have a couple of what we've talked about, a couple of small, minor changes. Substantively, the terms of the initial council, and a few other small changes that I will turn around and I'll get back to you, so that you can, at your next meeting, you can take a look at them and finalize them. And what I can do, you have your, next week is your public forum?
22nd.
22nd. So,
22nd? Okay.
Okay. So, and I think you have one more meeting, so if I get that to you before your next meeting, you have an extra meeting next week, and this will be really quick to turn around, get to you. If you want to approve it, then we can add it to, I don't know if you're posting on your website or at the forum, the full, it'll be a finished charter, that you can present.
I would like to post that. Yeah, do folks feel like they need to see those changes written out, or would you feel comfortable voting to approve this section contingent upon the changes that we discussed today here, just so that we could get it up on the website a little bit sooner?
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay either way.
Yeah, I'm fine with it being, a motion being contingent on the finished product.
Say as amended tonight.
Yeah, as amended, right.
There wasn't a lot.
No.
I'm very comfortable with that.
Any concerns? If there are, we can wait, certainly. I just would
And-
love to give the public more time to sit with a completed charter if we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And knowing that the entire draft charter is just that, a draft.
Correct.
And so, once you have your public forum, you'll be meeting again, and you'll have chances to discuss, the items that came up and get feedback on it. And also, when you present to the select board, you'll have an opportunity, might be changes made there too. So this isn't, the be all and end all.
Yes, as all of our votes on these sections of the charter, it is going to be subject to, what we hear from the public and subject to change as we see after that. So, okay, if folks are ready, then we could entertain a motion to approve Article 10 as amended over the course of the meeting tonight.
Madam Chair.
One quick question before. Just to clarify, you mentioned 10/17. No later than 30 days following the election at which this charter is adopted. And you said something about ratified?
Ratified.
Instead of adopted?
Ratified is the
Sure.
vote. So we'll say ratified, by voters.
All right.
Okay, because the adoption date is kind of a slippery,
Right.
There's, it's effective on this date, and this happens on this date, but if we say within the date of ratification, I think it's more
I
specific.
just want to be clear on that,
Yep.
because you kind of ran through that, and it's like,
Yeah.
did I hear it right? Okay.
That's a good.
Thank
that
you.
was a good catch.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. We'll try it one more time. we can entertain a motion to approve Article 10 as amended throughout the meeting tonight.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve Article 10 as amended this evening.
Second.
All those in favor, if we can do a show of hands just to keep track. Okay, and that's unanimous approval of Article 10 as amended tonight. Thank you. So we will get a cleaned up copy of this, put into one PDF to have a full charter posted on our website, and we can link to it on our social media and have that out there in advance of our public forum on this 22nd. So that's the last thing on our agenda today, is just to talk about our public outreach efforts. So as folks know, the forum is scheduled for the 22nd, which is a Monday at 6:30 p.m. And we're holding that at the Polish Club. We'll follow a similar format to the one that we did previously.
Is that on East Street? Sorry, the Polish Club, is that on East Street?
East Street, yeah.
Okay.
I have flyers here, if anybody wants to take them. I put one at the senior center, I'll put one at Randall's.
I'll take
I
some.
posted one. I've got a few here. I can print more if anybody
May
wants
I
one.
have one for my files? Thank you.
Anybody? I'll take them for the library. There's a couple here, and I can print more, getting to people, or I can email them and they can print one or something, but.
Yeah, email me a copy.
Yep, okay,
and-
yep.
Thanks.
Actually, I posted, it's on the website. It's
Oh,
on our
okay.
Facebook. It's on our Facebook page.
Okay,
And it's
great.
on the website, too.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
Amy put
Amy
it
put
out
it
there,
up there.
too, yeah.
Yeah, so we are still working on the frequently asked questions we talked about at the last meeting. Big thank you to Kathy and Marty for that. And I did get some feedback from Pat, which I will send over if I didn't already. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but thank you for looking at that as well. So we'll get those out there soon.
Can I talk about the FAQs for a
Please.
minute? So, yeah, we put together an FAQ, which are initially, once I get the feedback, I'll clean it up and then I'll send it out to the whole group to review. And Chris has given me, at the end of every question, the links to the meetings where we discuss those topics. So if people want to go and get it from the horse's mouth, they can click on that and then come and watch the meeting. So thank you, Chris, for that.
Yep.
And so what we've addressed first are the questions that first came out of the first public forum. And then we can add others to it. That'll be a living document, okay? And then what we thought we would do is we'll post the whole document on the website, but then we might slow drip them on Facebook page. So one or two of the FAQs we'll put out on Facebook, and then they direct them to the whole document rather than give them everything to read at once. We'll see how that goes.
Great plan.
And then I called the Register. I spoke to Marcelo at the Register today, and we've asked him whether we could have some ongoing communications in the Register. And like I told him about the FAQs, and we thought we might slow drip them up through the Register the way that we would be doing that through the Facebook page, so 2 or 3 every issue. And he was fine with that. And he says I can just send him information when we're ready to publish whatever it is, the FAQs or the link to the whole charter, those types of things, so that we can start to have a forum every week on the Register, so we can figure out what we want to do about that. Okay? And so also the FAQs and anything else that we have, the Word software package will translate documents into languages, and so I just ran it, and I converted the FAQs to Portuguese, so that if we wanted to put the documents out in Portuguese, I have no idea whether it was accurate or not, but it,
Run it by somebody, because
Yeah,
a
so
lot
I-
of those do not come out accurate.
Don't
no.
worry, you're just jumping right ahead of her. That's her neck. That's where she's going.
That's where I'm going, yeah. Well, I'm just thinking that it would be really good to have some publications in Portuguese, for the people that, don't speak English. And I don't know who might be able to review the translation to see whether it makes sense and it's accurate, or whether we even want to do that, but I think it'd be important to, if we don't ignore the Portuguese community. So I don't know what people's thoughts are on that.
Turkish too.
Definitely, it's hopeful. Maybe not that many would click onto it, because many won't need it, but having it available is always positive.
Mhm. Just
I've
let
used the
people know
Google
it's-
Translate with kids. Sometimes it didn't quite come out the way
No.
I thought it would.
No.
But more of a learning experience for me, I think.
Yeah, I don't know what people's thoughts are on all of that. I have no idea how accurate those translation programs are, or how easy it'd be for somebody who's Portuguese reading to read it. You know, sometimes it's a little hokey translations, but.
But it's an effort that's
I
worth
think
it.
it's better to have than not to have.
Right.
If I may suggest, you might want to ask Mark who they use. They may have some, you know, for example, health notices and things like that translated into Portuguese. They might have someone.
Do you know? Do you guys know? Do you?
I know what the police do, but it's a different system.
We have it at the high school, and we used it with students again. We got, find out in a fly that it's not as accurate as people thought it was, but it was at least better than not doing it. Yeah.
If there's something glaring, we could correct it, I would think, before, you know.
And we can preface it with, that it may not be.
Yeah, it may not be perfect, but
Right.
Paper.
I'm sure it'll
It
get
would
the
start a
message
dialogue.
across at
Well, I
least.
think it would,
Yeah.
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 Okay, so what do people think about the whole register, like if we wanted to do, every article, every issue, we would have something that we would be ready to publish. I think we kind of have to do that. We got to start getting the message out.
Yeah, I
I
think
think
that's
that
a
would
must.
be
Yeah.
great if they do. That's
Well,
what I will say there.
And I would love to see it not buried on page 5 in between some ads, because I think in the last register I looked for it, because I was looking to register to see if there's any updates on it, and I flip, and it was the 3rd page, and it was like 5th page, and it was like this big, and it was kind of like, we can't really ask or tell them where we want to have it in relation to it, but it'd be, I think this is
It is a big
extremely
story.
important. What's that?
It's a big story.
It is. It's important. It's almost like it should be an ongoing editorial or an ongoing section.
Well, that was sort of what I was hoping for, and once I got something ready, I was going to work with Marcelo to see if we could do something like that.
Yeah, I know you're very persuasive,
Yes.
so
Yes.
that's what my hope would be, is just that it doesn't get buried 9 pages in and into the the want ads or something.
Well, I think breaking it up too is a good idea, because smaller chunks, obviously, it's not going to take up the whole, 2-3 pages in the
Right.
register,
Right.
and they'll be more
Right.
likely to maybe give it a good location, and that will be easier for people to digest as well. So
Yep.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair, I think everything should come with your name on it as the chair, as an editorial, and this way we can guarantee that it will be pretty much consistent, whether page 8 or 9, depending upon the register, every time. And I think if it's from the chair, that carries a little bit more weight than it's just an article thrown in to Marcelo.
Yeah, we'll
Can talk about that, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important, because if it comes
Mm-hmm.
from you, the chair, that carries weight.
I'm sure we all talk to people out in town about all of this. The thing I get back from most people is you got to get the word out better. So however this goes out, page 8, page 1, it goes out. All of this stuff is great. Information getting out there in different avenues, Facebook, drip fed, force fed, however fed is a great way to do it.
And we're gonna try to do a phone call before the
And
forum,
a robocall
right?
too, as long as it's, falls within the parameters of date, time, venue. Yes.
Okay, great.
And can we get the forum up on the reader boards again? The portable signs? that-
Yeah.
Can we do that, however, wherever they are now, or just one in front of the police?
It's through the chief.
Okay.
Is there one out here?
The one we had here no longer works.
Oh, yeah.
They've moved around a little bit, I think.
All right,
but they-
yeah, I don't know,
wherever
if we
they
could
are.
get the word out, because it's, it's a week from Monday.
Okay.
And we're still looking on a projector and a screen. Linda and I are working on that. I think I have a projector. We're gonna get a screen, I think, so. Or, the idea is to have the PowerPoint. And I've reworked the PowerPoint. I sent it to you to take a look at. I moved stuff around and make it flow better than the first session. I cut out some things and I shortened a bunch of things. So I think it will probably flow better. A couple questions for you about what you want.
Yeah,
Take some
yeah.
other stuff out, so.
No, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have one more meeting, or if we don't, we'll have a time to talk, offline before that public
Mhm.
forum, and so folks are aware, kind of, my plan is to have the meeting after that public forum, we will kind of come back, take all of the feedback that we've heard, and we can run through that, you know, and talk about what we want to change, and we'll go from there.
Can I go back one on the public outreach? Kathy and I had talked about it, but we have not yet answered the police officer question yet. I did a little research on it, but I haven't put anything into answering yet. But that's one we still have to do. We can't let that one slide, because that's important that they know the process.
Yep, we're doing a little bit more
Yeah.
digging on the backside
Yeah.
of that too. So I think we'll address it probably when we address all of the feedback that we've received after those public forums. But if you have some research that you did that you want to share,
Yeah, I can
feel free to
write
send
something
that.
and send it through Kathy.
I'll send you the, I did a response, the tentative response. It's not going
Right.
anywhere, but I just published it while I was thinking about it. Let me just send that to you and see if it's the same
Okay.
type of stuff that you were looking at.
Right.
Yeah, and let me
and we'll keep
let me
it.
like finish doing a little bit of looking into a couple of other things too before we get too far ahead on that one.
Yeah. Mhm.
But it's still being talked about, and we will come back to it. Anything we missed on public outreach, Kathy?
Not in my immediate thought process. Did I send you anything else? I'm trying to think, did I send?
I don't think so. If you
I
did,
don't know, I
it's
was
on
busy
me.
this
It's
week. I know, I was
in my
busy this
inbox,
weekend, but
waiting for me
careful
to-
what you ask for.
Great. Okay, so I think that pretty much wraps it up. Anything else that we need to address tonight before we, say goodbye?
You're up, kid.
Great.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:02 PM.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.